Слава Ісусу Христу! Glory to Jesus Christ! Holy Reverend Fathers, Panis Presbyteres, Matushkas, parishioners of St. Nicholas and family and friends, I greet you in the name of Jesus Christ. Father Ken, you and the committee have done a good job on the 75th. And so if the committee of the 75th anniversary will stand, I'd like to applaud you. So please stand if you're on that committee. Someone said something about retired priests. My feelings about retired priests are well known to all the priests of our diocese, especially the ones that are retired. If you're a retired priest with 50 years of service or more, would you please stand? So at least 150 years of service of those three priests that stood, imagine now how many souls they encountered in their ministry and the good that they did. And maybe the good they didn't do, for whatever reasons. Know that the priests are responsible for all the souls that the Holy Spirit brings in their direction. In this community and the other community, the guy on the street that he encounters, he's responsible for all of them. And I know these three priests have done very well. I have heard their history from others, and it's good. And so, stay retired, but know that if we need you occasionally, we will call you. Because every priest, whether he is retired or not, needs an altar to serve the liturgy occasionally, to be in that place where you cannot be if you're not the priest. No lay person knows that feeling. Only the priests and maybe the bishops know that feeling of closeness to God, serving his altar. And so, if the phone rings, say yes. Father Frank, he's the chancellor. I'll never call you to send you somewhere. It's his responsibility to give you homework, so you can do it with him. Some people ask, how did you become bishop? You're not Carpatho-Russian. 3 people asked me here this weekend. Let me tell you what happened so you will know. If you've already heard this story, you can leave now. Come back in a few minutes. It was January of 2012. I get a call from the Archdiocese. Her name is Aliki. She is the Archbishop's secretary. I was in New Orleans as the dean of the cathedral there. I had been there for about 3.5 months with the prospect of being there 5 to 10 years. She goes, Father Gregorius, this is Aliki from the Archbishop's office. I said, Aliki, how are you doing? She says, I'm doing fine. Can you be in New York tomorrow? I said, no. Just like that. Immediately she said, Archbishop's office. I went, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Maybe. But to go to New York overnight, I said, Aliki, I have a parish here with 250 families. She goes, I know it's short notice, but we just wanted to ask. I says, can we find another day? I was stalling a little bit. I needed to talk to my Metropolitan, Alexios, in Atlanta, to see what is going on. The Archbishop is not going to call a priest without talking to the bishop responsible for that priest first. He said, when I talked to the Metropolitan an hour later, he goes, I think they want to talk to you about maybe being the new bishop for the Carpatho-Russians. My mouth dropped. I knew the Carpatho-Russians existed. I knew Metropolitan Nicholas. I had seen him for years in the Orthodox Observer in the photographs of Skova, the bishops. But I didn't know much about them. So a couple of days later, I went to New York. I met with the Archbishop. He told me about the Carpatho Russians, their need for a hierarch. Potentially, they were looking for candidates. I said, okay. And then I went to Johnstown clandestinely, met with Father Frank, the chancellor. He showed me the cathedral, the chancellery, the bishop's residence, the seminary, when the seminaries were not there, so that rumors will not start. Somebody has come to the seminary. What's that all about? He's not Carpatho Russian. What's up? The rumor mill would start. You know how it is. And so I went back to New Orleans, and then I was with the consistory, those 6 priests that have been advising the bishop for years. And as Father Ken said today at the end of the liturgy, I interviewed them when they thought they were going to interview me. 6 pages of questions on the legal pad. I think the first thing I asked, Father, is what do the priests get paid? Not what I'm going to get paid, what do they get paid? Because I knew they were getting paid less than the GOA priests were getting. I knew what that scale was, but I knew this was less. And I heard things about other jurisdictions and not being able to pay priests something that they can survive on. But then I heard that most of the communities of the Carpatho Russian diocese provide a house. Now, that's a big bonus for a priest to have a home close to the church and not have to worry about the expenses too much about that. And then other questions. How are they spiritually? How are they physically? How are they structurally? The physical plan of the diocese, they told me. And we continued to talk for about 3.5 hours. At the end, Father Frank, the chancellor, goes, what do we tell our people when they ask us, is this guy going to try to make us Greeks? And I started laughing. And I said, you tell your people, I will not make them Greeks if they try not to make me Carpatho Russian. But I will eat your food. When you tell someone you will eat their food, you have accepted them. Then we went to dinner and had a fantastic dinner. And then Father Frank says, what do you think? I said, it's in your hands. If you think I'm your guy, call the Archbishop and tell him that. And then we will figure out the rest of the process. Apparently they called the Archbishop. He called me and says, I think they like you. I said, really? Yes. Well, they have to vote now. I said, how can they vote? They don't even know who I am. I have to go and see them. And so we went to Camp Nazareth for Family Day that year and met with about 50 priests and Pawnees that showed up after we had liturgized together there. Question and answer. It was like defending a PhD thesis. Questions coming from all sides. What do you do about this? What do you think about this? And of course I answered them best I could. And then 8 days later in Taylor, Pennsylvania, where the weeping icons are. And again, another PhD defense. This one a little tougher because they'd had time to see what he might say. And of course, priests are these kind of people that don't ever pick up the phone and talk to brother priests and sort of say everything they know about something. That's not how it works. They usually communicate very well between themselves. And after that, I went back to New Orleans and waited. And they said, well, we think we're going to have a divine liturgy and then vote to nominate you on July the 14th. I said, that's fine. I will not be there. I will be at my summer camp in South Carolina with the Greek kids of the South. And so then the call was supposed to come sometime on that Saturday, but at the retreat center where I was in the mountains of South Carolina, there is no reliable internet connection. And so I couldn't watch the liturgy live. I couldn't watch the vote live. I waited for the call. Didn't come. And then I got a text message from a friend in Florida, priest. Congratulations. For what? You've been nominated. Thanks. Then another priest. You've been nominated. Congratulations. Thanks. But I need the official word. So then the phone rang, myself. Sergeant Demetrios. Congratulations, Father Gregorios. You have been nominated overwhelmingly by the Carpathia Russian priests. I said, thank you, Your Honor. He said, it's a miracle. I said, oh yes, it's a miracle. I will call you and we will discuss on Tuesday. I said, okay, fine. I gotta call my parents now. So, I pick up the phone, I call my father. Hello? Hey Dad, it's Father Gregorius. He's only got one son. Who's gonna say, hey Dad? He said, congratulations. I said, for what? He says, you won. I won what? I said. He said, you were nominated. I said, how do you know this? My father is 80 at the time, doesn't use computers. It wasn't on TV. I said, how do you know this? They called from Greece. I said, who called from Greece? He says, your cousin, Paraskivi, the presbyter, the pawn, they watched it on the Island of Rhodes, on the internet, and they called to congratulate me. I says, wow. So you knew before I knew. Yes, where's Mom? She's working today. I will call her. So I called the Greek restaurant where she's the hostess, and I said, hi, Mom. She goes, congratulations. I said, for what? She said, you won. I said, how do you know this? She says, we watched it on the internet here at the restaurant in the bar. There was no business, and so we just watched it. I said, congratulations. Your son has been nominated. Everyone in the world knows except him. And so that's how I became, if you will, nominated. The name then got forwarded to the Patriarchate. The Synod of Bishops there voted me unanimously to be the next hierarch of the Carpathia Russian Church. And then the final step is for me to accept that election in person. So I had to go to Constantinople in October, and they read the announcement of my election, and then I had to respond officially, Patriarch, to say, yes, I accept this, Bishop of Nisa. And then immediately to the chapel there, and to read officially after a small service, the official acceptance. And then after that, the enthronement in November. And that's how it worked. And so that's how you get a Greek guy in the diocese of the Carpathia Russians. They're watching us though. The other churches are watching to see how the diocese of the Carpathia Russians will adjust to someone who is not from their ethnic background, who is not someone who grew up listening and using the Proserpina chant, someone who is not anyone who knows what a pierogi is, or a haluki, but has learned. And they took a risk, these priests, to try something different. So far, so good. I think they have not hung me by any tree yet. But this is a moment of orthodoxy in America. There are many jurisdictions here, many bishops, most of them from their own ethnic group. They're watching to see how this different diocese will function. They're watching. At the Assembly of Bishops back in September in Chicago, 43, 44 bishops of all the jurisdictions got together to look at several things. They meet every year. This was the 4th year. And the main thing was a restructuring of the canonical divisions in America, trying to figure out how we can be one church somehow, to fix the anomalies where we have 5 bishops of New York, 4 bishops of Chicago, 2 bishops of San Francisco, 2 2 bishops of Boston. This is not a canonical arrangement. By the way, 1 bishop of Johnstown. We have it correct. I don't know which 3 guys in Chicago are going to have to leave, but it's going to be ugly when somebody's got to leave. But you see the sensitivities that are involved here with this. And it's frightening when they show you a map and you see that the Carpatho-Russian Church, I'll just take us, which runs from Canada to Florida, Mississippi River to the Atlantic, that we would be in 4 different ecclesiastical provinces of the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, the South, and the Midwest, Northern Midwest. Well, you can only be a bishop in one area, theoretically. And so that ecclesiastical division, that province would have a metropolitan, let's say, and 7 or 8 bishops underneath, who would then take care of the churches with, say, a 200-mile radius. He would be responsible for 45 to 50 churches of multiple jurisdictions. Within 2 hours, everyone could come visit the bishop. Within 2 hours, the bishop could visit any church in his area. This is the way it's supposed to be. Not having to get on an airplane to fly. Not having to get in the car and drive for 10 hours. Not just the bishop, the people. How can they come and see their bishop for something? Something's going on. We need to discuss it. Let's get 4 people from parish council together. Let's go to Johnstown. Let's talk to the bishop one afternoon. Let's resolve a problem. So you see how difficult it is. But when the map got rolled out, every hierarch in that room looked to see where he was. It's normal, natural to want to see that. And then, of course, we broke up after the initial presentation into tables like this, where 7 or 8 bishops were on a table. We're discussing concerns, problems, things that we want to look at. Is this really what we want to do? Are we fine just the way we are? Should we try something else? I mean, a lot of ideas. One of the bishops said something like, how can we have unity in America when we have 2 calendars? And I just didn't say anything. I just waited for the right moment. And after we finished in those little discussion groups, we came back and we presented our table in a PowerPoint presentation to the rest of the bishops, the ideas we came up with, our concerns. And it was luck have it, table number 3 chose me to be the spokesman. It was easy for me to speak. I got up. I did the bullet points from our table, and I said, since I'm up here, Archbishop Demetrius, if you will allow me to speak personally from the heart. He said, Bishop Gregory, of course, say what you want. And I said, earlier someone said, how can we have unity in America? We have 2 calendars. And so I said, everyone in this room, for the most part, is either old calendar or new calendar. Is that correct? And of course, everybody's nodding their head up and down. And it says, I'm not. 60% of my churches are old calendar, 40% of my churches are new calendar, and we're doing just fine as a diocese. It's not a problem. Each community follows its calendar. If you're old, you follow the old calendar. If you're new, you follow the new. The only person in the diocese who has a difficulty is the bishop. He's following 2 calendars. Christmas, twice. Epiphany, twice. Thank God Pascal once. Because if you had to go through 2 holy weeks, you would be physically and spiritually, emotionally exhausted. And one of the bishops said, so at Christmas, you fast for 53 days. And I says, it might not look like it, but I do. And then some other issues that came out. I says, I was born in this country. I might be from a Greek family. I'm very proud of that. But I'm an American. And in America, we like to do things our way. We want to be in control. Now, I was bold enough to say that. And they probably said, he's young, he doesn't know. He's new, he won't get into too much trouble. It's like our homes. We live in our homes with our family. At some point, we move out and set up our own home. We always go back for Thanksgiving. We always go back for Christmas. We always call for all the holidays. We always call on Sunday afternoon to see how our parents are doing. It would be the same way with the mother churches. I said, I can't conceive that this is not leading to autocephaly in America. Why else are we meeting? They told us to get together and figure it out and bring a plan to us to look at. And some of us are stuck because we're afraid. What are you afraid of? You're afraid you're going to lose your church? Your church's not going anywhere. You're afraid you're going to lose your music's not going anywhere. Afraid you're going to lose your preacher's not going anywhere. The only thing that would change is who your bishop might be. Because he'll be close to you. And you'll be close to him. Proximity now, I'm talking geography. And so the person who has to work is going to be the bishop. He's going to have to learn how to say Christ is risen in 8 different languages. He's the one that's going to have to learn 8 different liturgical styles. He's going to have to learn all the musical themes and movements that we have in Orthodox. He has to work, not the people. The people only have to accept who the new bishop is going to be for them. Well, Greeks will never accept an Albanian bishop. Rokor parish never would accept a Carpatho-Russian bishop. Blah, 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 blah. Reasons not to be together. We need to be together. One church in America. We'll figure out the name. We'll figure out how we become who we will become. Who will be the bishop in charge of an area. That's small potatoes, I think. If you take out the ego of the bishops. Every bishop is looking, I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose this. So at lunch, Archbishop Demetrius says, I want the primates to sit with me, the head bishop of every jurisdiction to be at that table. I'm the head bishop of the Carpatho-Russians. I'm the only Carpatho-Russian bishop. So I get a seat at the table. They're talking there. And I said, Your Eminence, I said, this will only work if we stop looking at it at which bishop gets what and start looking at what's best for America. And we'll figure out who goes where later. He looked at me and he said, no one else is thinking this way. I said, then we'll never have unity if we don't. I said, if we need to, let's pick a date 50 years from now and say, we're going to be unified in America by this date. That means all the bishops that are alive today will all be dead, and they won't get anything except a place somewhere to be buried. But the church will be organized in a way that it can move forward in this country. And of course, Archbishop Justinian from Moscow was there, and they had to translate what I was saying to him. And everybody heard it, and everybody sort of shook their head. They don't know what that means exactly. But that was a big issue in Chicago. How are we going to do this? And so we took all the suggestions, put it back to the committee, and now we have to wait till next September for the new version of whatever. I'm the youngest, newest bishop. That means I get probably North and South Dakota. But if that's where the church needs to send me, that's where I'll go. That's how I became the Carpatho-Russian bishop. I told them, where do you need me to serve the church? Do I need to go to Africa? I'll go to Africa. I don't have a wife. I don't have any biological children. I have 1,000 spiritual children. Just tell me where you need me. So my mother goes, "You're leaving us." I said, "Mom, I'm not leaving you. I'm in America. I'm in Pennsylvania. It's the same time zone as North Carolina. Louisiana is a different time zone." I said, "I'm even closer to you now than before." And so when I explained who the Carpathian Russians were and everything, she felt better. She came to Johnstown for my ordination. She came to the church and said, "It looks like a Greek church." I said, "Mom, all Orthodox churches have this, you know that. But you know how moms are, they worry about their sons." In any case, that's how I got to where I am. If you're wearing a tie with a biological theme, could you please stand up, please? If you're wearing a tie with a biological theme. No one? Where did he go? Did he leave? Someone had one with some kind of frogs and amphibians on it? He left. Next. No, I can't lose on this one. If you've ever been as a camper or counselor staff of Camp Nazareth, ever, stand up. Priest, if you've been there, stand up. It's like pulling teeth with these guys. I don't see the kids. Where are they at? All right. All right, you can sit down now. Near and dear to my heart is our retreat center up in Mercer, Pennsylvania, Camp Nazareth. Been there since 1977. This is where we hold our summer camp. Many things have come from this summer camp besides just fun. We have several people who actually met their future spouses there. We even have a couple of priests in our diocese who have found their spouses there. And even lay people who have found their spouses there. I'm going to be telling you about Camp Nazareth every time I see you. We're going to do even more at that place. I spent 3.5 weeks there this summer with our kids, and we had a blast. And if you want to know how much of a blast we had, you can go on the website or find a kid that was there, and they will tell you. We are now 8.5 months until camp starts again. The bishop can tell you the exact day count. You know it's a serious matter for him. We're really close to like 230 days away. And the kids know this. Some of them actually have it on their iPhone and it's counting down the days. You have supported Camp Nazareth in many ways with your financial gifts and with your time and your talents, and I thank you for that. Thank you so much for helping put together that sort of northern part of paradise up here in Mercer. The Toastmaster, David. You opened the discussion about sports. Hang on to your hat. If you can believe it, when I was 6 years old, I needed to find a baseball team to support. Charlotte, North Carolina didn't have a professional league team. We did have a minor league team, AA, for the Baltimore Orioles. The closest team was Atlanta. I didn't really like the Braves. The next closest team was up in the Baltimore area. Washington had a team at the time. But on a Saturday afternoon, I saw the Pirates playing and I said, that's the coolest team in baseball. That's my team. At age 6, that yellow uniform, the black stripes, the black P on the hat, Roberto Clemente, you know the rest of the story. I've been a Pirates fan from the very beginning. And now I live 1 hour and 15 minutes away from where they play. Isn't God great? And as luck would have it, for the first time in 20 years, we were able to talk about baseball in October, and it actually involved the Pirates. Usually by the middle of July, we stop talking about the Pirates because they're 20 games out. But not this year. This year they went pretty far. Next year they're taking it all. Put your money on it. I don't care what kind of money. I would recommend Confederate money, being from the South. I'm a biologist, as I was telling some people earlier. I was in medical research for 20 years before I went to seminary. My favorite animal is the penguin. It swims, it doesn't fly, but it's a bird. It's kind of strange, looks like a human being in a tuxedo. As luck would have it, the Pittsburgh Penguins this year tried to make a run to the Stanley Cup. Charlotte didn't have a professional hockey team, although we did have minor league hockey. And it looked like the match, enough ice melted underneath their skates right at the end. And so all we can say now is maybe this year we will win it. Steelers. How many of you are Steelers fans? I'm really sorry about that. You're in Ohio. Is anybody a Cleveland fan? I'm sorry for you too. This 6-year-old boy in Charlotte, North Carolina didn't have a pro team. He had to find a team. One afternoon during December, he found the coolest team in football. They wore purple and they had a horn in their hats. The Minnesota Vikings. Is anybody a Vikings fan here? One. 4 times they've gone to the Super Bowl, 4 times they have made me cry. They haven't won yet. One time they win against the Steel Curtain guys from Pittsburgh, and that explains why I hate the Steelers. I hated the Steelers. I live in Johnstown now. If I say that, I probably won't be able to do another liturgy ever. But last year, after the nomination process, I'm watching the Steelers play, a lot of times on Sunday night. On Sunday, when I was traveling, I was on the road, so I didn't see games, but only the Sunday night game. But last year, I was in New Orleans, and I was watching the Steelers play in the evenings, and they were losing games every Sunday night. And I said, man, they're terrible. They really are. They really are terrible. They're even losing to teams like the Baltimore Ravens. 13-10. It was a miserable game. I told Father Frank, they're terrible, Father Frank. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens, who are they? They're the Super Bowl champs. That's who they ended up being. But now, as you said, Super Bowl champs have targets on their back. Everybody's going after them. They've already lost some impressive games. The Steelers, what are they now? 2-18? What are they? 2-6? 2-5? You told me you're Steelers fans. Tell me. 2-5. Okay, that's good. 20 years ago, the Carolina Panthers were born. I became a Panthers fan. I mean, in your own town, if you have a football team, you have to pull for that team. And of course, they've had some great years. And they actually went to the Super Bowl one time. 10 years ago, this year, they went to the Super Bowl. They'd only been in the league 10 years. They lost in the Super Bowl. You might remember it. New England, field goal into the game, like 35-38 or whatever it was. Something miserable, 34-31. I was in Boston at the seminary. My Panthers were playing in the Super Bowl. Everybody's pulling for the Patriots, but me. That was tough, but they got to the Super Bowl. This year, they're 5-3. Today they're playing Atlanta Braves. They're kind of their arch rivals. Atlanta is really terrible. I can use other terms to describe them. I hate them so much. And even when I was in Atlanta for 5 years, I never pulled for the Falcons. They're dirty birds, they call them. I hope the Steelers turn it around, because I really would love to see the Steelers and Panthers play in the Super Bowl one year. Then I would really care who won. It would just be great to be there with both of those teams. If you're a Browns fan, I've been crying with you for a long time. It's coming. I don't know which century, but it's coming. I'll stop talking sports. Father Jonathan, thank you so much for your words today. As a son of this parish, Father Kenneth and Pawnee Mary and the family. Thank you so much for your hospitality, not only this weekend, but the other times I've traveled through. I appreciate that. I really feel like I'm at home. If you'll take your program book now and open it up to the page. For some reason, Father Ken didn't number the pages. I think he's trying to save on ink. Can't win, buddy. It's about 3 pages in, and you'll open it there, and there are the 3 hierarchs there. Metropolitan Orestes, Bishop John, and Metropolitan Nicholas. And these 3 gentlemen were the first 3 ruling hierarchs of the diocese. I am the 4th ruling hierarch of the diocese. There have been 2 other bishops, but they were not the ruling hierarchs. For my birthday in December, the seminarians were very witty, very quick. I had only been the bishop in Johnstown for about 10 days. It was my birthday. They presented me with an official NFL jersey of the Carolina Panthers with the number 4, 4th ruling hierarch. And on the back, where they put the last name, they put Vladika. And so the only time I wear that is when we're in the Super Bowl. I don't mean my team. I mean, if I go to a Super Bowl party, that's what I wear. And so I did. These 3 gentlemen led this diocese in fantastic ways, if I can say. A tremendous history of how this diocese was formed. Painful in some ways, glorious in other ways. You need to read your history if you have not. I have read it at least twice now, Father Berenger's books about who you are, who you have become. And these 3 men, as I said, were very instrumental in that. They are all in various ways at the chancellery. I see them every day. Bishop Orestes, you see that crown there on his head? Is one of the heaviest things that you can put on your head. I think it weighs like 28 pounds. I mean, it's really heavy. All metal. Thank God it's too small for my head. But it's in my office. You know, curio of things of these 3 hierarchs. Bishop John is in the front yard of the chancellery. And I have him buried there. His grave marker is there. And when I come into the chancellery, usually at night, I always say, good night, Yeronda. Yeronda is a Greek term for wise one. And so I'm connected to this hierarch. Orestes, I have several of his things, as I said, in the chancellery. And of course, Metropolitan Nicholas of blessed memory, the first portrait when you walk into the chancellery is his. If you remember, after his falling asleep in the Lord, they put this portrait, not this one, another portrait that he had on his throne and waited till the new bishop came, whoever he was going to be. And then right before his enthronement, they took that portrait down to the family members, and it went next door to the chancellery, and it's the first one on the wall. He's the first one I see every morning when I wake up and go to the office. The residence of the bishop is attached to the chancellery. I come in the door, and the first portrait on the wall is his. And I say, good morning, Yeronda. Good morning, wise one. And so I am connected to these 3 men. The first two I didn't see alive. Bishop Nicholas I did see alive. I met him a couple of times in my past and have really been impressed with the ministry that he had for almost 30 years in this diocese. The next page, of course, is Bartholomew, Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew's letter greeting you. You can read that at your leisure. Of course, then it was interesting to see, because Father Ken keeps good notes, and others keep good notes and records. 419 baptisms, 159 weddings, 164 funerals. What does that mean? That means you have an active parish. Then more people are being baptized than dying. There are so many communities where the funerals outnumber the baptisms. What's the trajectory on that one? Down. But that's not the case here. And then there's a beautiful history there, after you pass a few more letters, myself and Father Ken, the history of this community. Please go home and read this. Please share it with your children, with your grandchildren, with your godchildren, so that they know who they are locally. So they won't take things for granted. Oh, the church is here. It's always been here. No, it hasn't always been here. There was a time when the Carpatho-Russians didn't have a church here in Warren. It didn't even exist as a diocese. And so this is very beautiful history. I thank you for those who put that together. But don't let it just sit in the book. Read it. Underline it. Try to find people connected to you. Family members, priests who somehow played a big role in your life. And then there are like so many photographs. And then there's a beautiful section there about the weeping icons and the history of what's going on with those, and who knows where that will end up. But it is impressive and something that you should be very proud of, this particular community. And then if you look on the back page, the back cover, if you will, is the interior of St. Nicholas, the Iconostasios, and the altar area behind. This is God's house. This is the local version of God's house, where He is and where you should go and talk to Him regularly, and I know that you do. As I was saying last night in Vespers, those are not just photographs sitting on the wall, that's the actual person in a represented form. And so that Christ and Panagia and the archangels and Nicholas and Cyril and Stephen and John the Baptist are all there with us as we pray. The understanding of the Orthodox Church is during the Divine Liturgy we are celebrating heaven on earth. From chapter 4 and 5 of the book of Revelation, you will find heavenly worship. We have incorporated many of those things in the way we worship our God. It's not a coincidence. It is a concerted effort by the early church to create something that would be encompassing us completely. All of our senses are engaged. Our eyes are being used, our nose is smelling the incense, our fingers are touching our body in the sign of the cross, we're tasting the Eucharist, we're hearing the music. It's all there, fully engaged. That's why our churches are decorated the way they are, to constantly stimulate us in our worship services. You have done well here. The church is beautiful, extremely well kept, clean. I don't know if it's because the bishop was coming and Father Ken spent a week scrubbing everything. I know it's not the case. It was clean the first time. He didn't even know I was coming. You have done well. Teach your children everything that you know. Don't let even one little thing get lost. I'm talking about our religious beliefs. I'm talking about our cultural things. I'm talking about what it means to be an American. If our kids don't know our U.S. history well, we're in trouble. If they don't know the Carpatho-Russian history well, they're in trouble. If they don't know their Greek history well, you Greeks, they're in trouble. If you are some other jurisdiction, I won't go down the list. If we don't know who we are, we're in trouble. We can only go forward in a positive way if we don't lose any of the lessons of life. That includes how we got here. The kids are number one with me. I'm not worried about any of you older people going somewhere else. I am, however, worried we'll lose them. We have to fight to keep them. Society is pulling our children away, offering so many things that are not as boring in their eyes as sitting in church for an hour and 15 minutes on a Sunday. Fight. There are kids. They don't belong to anybody else. And if we lose them, it's our fault. No child is going to leave its home, its family, if it's treated well. There's no need to go anywhere else. But if we don't treat them well and love them, I don't mean spoil them. Spoil them is not what I'm talking about. Loving them, giving them all the tools they need to survive, we will be held accountable for that. And so do everything you can, locally and within our diocese and nationally. And I'll finish with one last thing with the Assembly of Bishops. Another thing that came up was a proposal for something for our youth, jurisdictionally. Next year, you are going to receive, if all things go well, materials from the Assembly of Bishops, from the Youth Committee, for a program. We'll give you all the details. All you do is follow it. To get together with all the Orthodox kids in your town. Get together with the Greek kids, Serbian kids, OCA kids, whoever that's Orthodox, and get them all together and follow the program that will be provided. 2014. 2015, we will get all the kids together in a region, geographic region. Another program will be provided that we will gather our kids so they can see other kids from other towns that are like them. When I say like them, they're Orthodox. And then in 2016, a national event where our kids will go from all over the country, from all jurisdictions to some big city probably, for 3 or 4 days for like an Orthodox fest of some kind. Think of the power of that we could get all our kids, and when I say all, I mean lots of them, thousands of them, together. Where are they going to find their spouses? A lot of them find them at camps. Some of them find them at college. Some of them find them in other places. But wouldn't it be cool to meet some other Orthodox kids and create friendships that might eventually turn into something more? And where do you think we're going to get our priests from? Where do you think the Pawnees are going to come from? From our kids who are together, celebrating in some way. So when it comes, please do not delete the email. Please do not put them on your desk, priests, and let them gather dust. If my priests do it, they're in trouble. They know how serious I am about it. I'm hoping that my other fellow hierarchs are as serious about it as I am. They're not the future of the church. They're already here. They are the present. The future of the church is not born yet. If we blow it with this generation, we can forget about having any kind of presence in America. No matter how hard we try, it will slowly die out. Because we'll all be dead. And if those kids aren't Orthodox deep down in their heart, in their bones, we won't exist. We'll be totally irrelevant. A non-entity. a footnote in history. And how tragic would that be for the Orthodox Church to vanish after 2,000 years of struggling to be alive? And it blew it in the generation where they had everything available to them to keep it going. What kind of accountability do we have on Judgment Day if we blow this? You had everything. I gave you all the tools and you didn't use them. Because you were still in your cultural, ethnic, bigoted mode and not looking outside to the world. We have to look outside to the world. We've done it in everything else. Our kids go to the greatest universities. They're at every layer and every industry that the country has to offer. Why can't it be the same with our faith? Because if we don't get our act together, how are we going to help others? The Holy Spirit is going to send people to us who are broken, who are not orthodox, looking for their God. And they're going to be looking for the authentic church. The authentic church in the book of Acts is the Orthodox Church. Where did Paul write his letters? All those cities have Orthodox churches from the beginning. All of them. So they're writing to our people. How can we abandon that? And so when those people who are not Orthodox, maybe not even Christian, find orthodoxy, they're going to find their home. And they tell us that. I finally feel like I found my home. Welcome. Hug them. Don't look at them and say, wow, you're not the same color as me. You came from what country? Oh, we don't associate with Greeks. We don't associate with Carpatho-Russians. We don't want to have anything to do with Russians. You're Serbian? Far away. And yet, we see this in every one of our communities. There's always a few just don't get it, that scare off people. Don't scare off people. Hug them. Take them in. Most of them are Protestants. They're converts. They're going to tithe. They're getting 10% of their income. They're not cheap like us. There was a study that showed that the typical Greek, I'll pick it on my own group now, 1/3 of 1% of their income they gave to their church. 1/3 of 1%. Now look and see what the Greeks have. You know what I'm talking about? Just imagine what they would have if they gave 2/3 of 1%. Just double the little bit that you give. If it's my wife, tell her I'm not coming home. For the record, I don't have a wife. Let's just take what we have, this beautiful gift that's ours, and share it with whoever wants to receive it. Don't be stingy with anything. Giving with everything. In the end, you're going to die. They're going to put you in a box. It's going to be a $2,000 box, $5,000 box, $10,000 box. It's still a box. And the priest is going to say some prayers, and the chanters are going to say some stuff, and everybody, they're going to be crying, and we should. The family will be on one side, the friends around, the relatives. And somebody's going to get up and say something, oh, he was such a good man. She was such a sweet lady. In all my years at funerals, I've never heard anybody say, man, he was terrible. She was such a... Nobody ever does that. Nobody. And yet, they'll close the top, they'll put you in a black car, they'll take you to a piece of dirt somewhere, they'll throw you in the ground, they'll say a few more prayers, throw some dirt on top of you, and then you're gone. The body will be done. But where's your soul? Paradise or hell? Think about it. There's no middle ground anywhere. I don't care what Oprah tells us, that somehow there's something in the middle. There's not. Christ didn't say there was something in the middle. He came from heaven, He went to hell, he went back to heaven. There's no middle ground anywhere in the story of Jesus Christ. It's not there for him, it's not there for us. He showed us everything. Somehow I wrote all of that on the bottom of a paper plate. It's the first time that I have written anything on a paper plate. I mean, usually there's something in the book, somewhere, some space, nothing. So I had to look for whatever was available. It was a paper plate. I will take this paper plate home, make a copy of my scratchings, and put it in my sermon folders. For historical reasons, I have kept everything I've ever said publicly that was written down, even if it was the bottom of a paper plate. I don't know why. I just like having those things. I'm a collector of many things. I don't have hoarder's disease, but I do have a lot of things. Organized on shelves, I can find anything if you give me about 10 minutes. It's now 3:23. All the 1 o'clock games are now in the fourth quarter. And we need to get out of here. Because there's football to finish up. And then if we're lucky, a 4 o'clock game. And then if we're really lucky, we'll even watch the 8 o'clock game. Does anybody know what time Pittsburgh's playing? Doesn't matter. It's a 1 o'clock game. When I was in New Orleans, is it a 4 o'clock game? Who are they playing? West Coast?
Patriots.
4 o'clock? Where? Where? In New England? Okay. They're still trying to figure out what happened with the Red Sox. World champs. Nice. Nicely done. Thank you so much for coming and celebrating the 75th anniversary of St. Nicholas. Know that I love you and pray for you. Pray for me so that we can make it to paradise together. Okay? See you soon.